I think I've always found photography is, for me, the most compelling medium, as it is the one that I can best tell a story with, that I can use the camera as a note taker and a text creator, visual text creator. My work is always, or I intend it to be, the opening paragraph of a story, but the story has to be, or the narrative has to be established by the viewer. I demand a lot of my viewer, and so I'll give them basic information. And then from there, they have to take it if they feel like they'd like to. And also, versus painting or any other medium, I need a framework of reality that I can hang my stories off of, I can hang my imagery off of. So I'm very, I think, traditional in that respect, that I want a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I want some kind of a story arc that is created either within the photograph or is stimulated by the photograph. Being a self-taught photographer, I kind of have felt behind the eight ball at sometimes, or kind of behind the curve, because I didn't really study any art history, photo history, and have kind of scrambled to create a kind of a stable of people whose work I respect. And most of that work is vernacular photography. It's the crime scene photographs, or it's driver's license, not really an art-based work. I get very interested, very compelled to study this kind of work. But if we think about actual photographers that I find most appealing, I think Robert Adams for his silence, Gary Winogrand for his noise, his cacophony, Edward Hopper for his loneliness and darkness, and Alex Soth actually for his awkwardness. I find that all of his subjects look somewhat awkwardly placed in the world. And what appeals to me in a photo of when it's not my own is a mystery, a sense of mystery, and also the imparting of information. So I'm most excited about seeing an image that has, again, a narrative arc, but that it has clues embedded in the imagery that will lead me in one direction or this direction. And I find that this creates a really interesting roadmap for my understanding, not only of what the artist intended, but how this work has stimulated me. My neighbor's project, wherein I photographed the people across the street from me in their apartment without their knowledge, for many people feels voyeuristic and inquisitive, and it indeed may be. But I've been asked recently, what is the connection between of COVID-19 photography, there's so much imagery out there now of people looking longingly out of windows at their past life, essentially. And I think the big difference between my work and this most current work is that my subjects are not looking out. They're never looking out. There's no pictures of them looking out. There's no faces. They're looking in. So they are looking into, to me, their inner life and are kind of inspecting their inner life, their inner home, their sanctity, and not necessarily looking to get out, because the new COVID-19 photography really is all about what is missing and what is being mourned, and anticipatory postures, like if we could get out, we can do this. And again, my neighbor's work is totally different than that. It is, in a way, more narcissistic, I think, because the people are looking inward, or if they happen to look at a sideways glance outward, I think they're looking more perhaps at their reflections than at a way to get out of their enclosure. During and after I was working on the Neighbors project, I began to get very disturbed by the demographic I was photographing. It's a very expensive building here in New York City, and I was photographing people mostly at leisure. No one ever seemed to be working, except maybe the support staff or the nannies or something. And I really started thinking I was denying a voice to all the people that were working within those confines. So I set up another project called The Workers, which is also morphed into another project more recently called The Invisible. And I started photographing again from my studio into windows, but in a different street. And I photographed people laboring. They were basically the people that were laboring and building these buildings for the neighbors. And I felt there was a great nobility and necessity for these workers. And this was 6, 7 years ago. And I continued that search, I think it is, for that kind of secret of work, of what does manual work look like. Just with the neighbors, I wanted to see, what do people look like when they're alone or think they're alone. And this, I wanted to see what work was, work that I'm unfamiliar with. So I did take photographs, thousands of them, of people at work, again, without them knowing it. And for the workers, I printed them as ovals, because I wanted to note a certain nobility to the art of work. And I felt that I would base these ovals and base this kind of formatting on maybe like 17th century portraiture. So I went up to the Met, actually, and studied ovals and how the body was placed in the oval, and again, what did it denote? The newer work, the invisible, are not in ovals, but they are even more abstract in a way, because I'm taking just body parts, a hand doing something, or a shadow on a wall, or a figure behind plastic that you know is doing something, but you don't know what it is, but you know it's work related. I'm working on a project now, The Future Past, which is actually behind me. This work, these are photographs taken from online sources of houses, apartments, and buildings where the death of a child by gunfire will occur. It hasn't occurred yet in these locations, but it will. And this is all based on using data from where children are killed, Google Maps, Street View. Anyway, I was very curious in not the scene of the crime, but the scene before the crime. So when you look in all of these windows, and you look in all of these houses, and you look in these buildings, there's a possibility that the child that was eventually killed is sitting in the upstairs bedroom, either playing a game or potentially hiding from their potential killer. I've been asked about the relationship between this and the Black Lives Matter protests, and I think one of the major connections, in fact I know it is that gun violence is the second leading cause of death amongst children overall, and the first leading cause of death among black children. Black kids are 10 times more likely to be killed in a gun homicide than white children. I think this is a forgotten demographic. I started this project thinking I would do something on school shootings, and I realized that most of these kids in these school mass shootings, as tragic as it is, are like white kids. And I started thinking, where is the publicity and where is the press on the 4-year-old African-American girl that was caught in a custody battle and whose father shot her in the head? Where was the talk about the 17-year-old that got caught in a gang fight and was murdered? And I didn't see and don't see enough information about these children. So this is one of the reasons I set out to do this project, is to say every child is equal. And in their deaths, they are equal. And we have to pay attention to this. During this shutdown, lockdown, whatever we're in, I would like to say that I've been reading Proust and going on the Met online every day, but no. I've taken kind of a moratorium from art. I'm much more interested in watching footage of the protests. And I'm finding that is the art of the moment, and that is all the art I need. I don't need to see anything else. So I watch a lot of the protests, and they're like watching a ballet. They're choreographed in such an extraordinary, organic way. And I think I feed off also the enthusiasm of the participants. Also, what am I reading? Well, not Proust. I'm reading Say Nothing by Patrick Keefe, which is about a murder in Northern Ireland, a true story during the Troubles. It's a fascinating story of not only the Troubles, but of particular families in Ireland. I just read a fabulous book, Michael Kohlhaas, It was written in the like 1810, I think, about a man in the 16th century that feels he was wronged over a deal about horses, and sets up this extraordinary revenge. Not even a fantasy. He actually hired armies and chopped people's heads off and carried on. But it's so contemporary also in terms of the kind of the class struggles and class jealousies. Also, I'm reading everything I can find by Patricia Highsmith. So I guess I'm reading books, I just realized this, about people that are trapped in some form. So I guess what I'm really reading are people trapped in circumstances, mostly of their own making, but nonetheless they are trapped in a situation and trying to figure out ways out of this. So maybe it's very, very appropriate that I'm reading all these books during this time when I'm trying to figure out how to get out of the house.